ibn Saba was Ammar ibn Yasir. Now he's got 15 proofs. I just want to give you a hint why. Ibn Saba's mother, what's her name, I said? What was her name? Sauda. Sauda literally means what in English? Darker complexion, let's say. Ammar ibn Yasir's mother was whom? Sumayyah. Sumayyah had a darker complexion. In Siffin, Amr ibn al-As does not call Ammar ibn Yasir by his name. He calls him Ibn Sauda. Why? Because there is a problem if you call Ammar by his name. Because the hadith was there, Ammar taqtiluka al-fi'atil baghiya. Ammar, you will be killed by infidels. If Amr ibn al-As says Ammar, then the narrators will straight away say that if you are fighting Ammar, then what does that put you in? And it actually happened because Muawiyah was not as careful. Muawiyah in the narration said, Ammar ibn Yasir. When his companions heard, they said, Ammar ibn Yasir is on the opposition, because Ammar ibn Yasir on the day of Siffin was 93 years old. The companions said, he's in the opposition. The reply was yes. They said, Rasulullah said, Ammar taqtiluka al-fi'at al-baghiya. Ammar will be killed by infidels. Muawiyah said, we aren't the infidels. Why? He said, it's Ali ibn Abi Talib who has killed him, not us. Why? He said, Ali ibn Abi Talib brought him to war. So he's the one who's killed him. To which the reply by Ali ibn Abi Talib was, that means Rasulullah killed Hamza because he brought him to war. The point was what? Amr ibn al-As was saying, Ibn Sauda. Ibn Sauda, Ammar ibn Yasir, according to Dr. Shaibi, is Ibn Sauda. Because of the fact that one of the men who rose vehemently against Uthman ibn Affan, according to narrations, was Ammar ibn Yasir. Therefore, on the first level, did Abdullah bin Saba begin the Syiah? No. Let's move that. Number two, Jamal. Some academics say the first usage of the word Syiah of Ali was in the Battle of Jamal. Battle of Jamal was fought by whom? Uthman ibn Affan got killed. 3 wanted vengeance. Actually, I could say thousands wanted. But 3, let's just say, were the main ones who wanted vengeance. Talha, Zubair, and Aisha. They wanted vengeance. They said to Ali ibn Abi Talib, if you don't find the killers, then we're going to have to fight you. Ali ibn Abi Talib replied by saying, I have just been instilled as Khalifa. To find the killers is not something I can do overnight. It requires a proper courtroom where we bring everyone together. They said the killers are on your side and we're going to fight you. Academics come forward and say, the first Syiah were those who helped Ali ibn Abi Talib in the Battle of Jamal. Who were they? They said the first Syiah were people like Malik al-Ashtar, Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, names along those lines, who were seen as the Syiah, meaning the party of Ali against Aisha at Jamal. Therefore, the second school came and said what? The first time the word Syiah was ever used in terms of the battlefield was in this area. The third group is seen as being the strongest. That the Syiah were those who held on to the belief that Ali ibn Abi Talib was the person announced as successor of the Prophet Muhammad before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family passed away. This is the Syiah mainstream. What do they say? They look at a hadith by the name of Hadith al-Ghadir. If you note down the following reference, in Sahih Muslim, volume 2, page 880, the abridged version, not the complete version, the abridged version, Darus Salam publishes, 2002 edition. Volume 2, page 880, abridged version, 2002 edition. If you go to that narration, it says, Zayd ibn Arqam is the man in the chain of the narration. He is asked by the companions, what happened when the Holy Prophet was on his farewell pilgrimage? Now here is a typical example of a Syiah using what is known as a classic Sunni reference. But of course the references can go further than this. Zayd says, we stopped at a place which was an oasis by the name of Khum. Hence you'll see many Shia refer to this incident by saying our origin is Ghadir Khum. We stopped at a place by the name of Khum. The Holy Prophet came forward in front of everybody, and he came forward and he said, "O people," he began to give the whole sermon until he reached the line that I am leaving behind for you two things which if you hold on to them you will never go astray. This is Muslim's narration. The Quran, and then he says, "My Ahlul Bayt, my Ahlul Bayt, my Ahlul Bayt," 3 times. The question then asked is, who are your Ahlul Bayt? The reply was, the followers of Ali. That's the narration which is there in Muslim. Therefore you found that the incident of Ghadir is where many Shia state was the first usage of this idea, that Ali and his Shia, those who hold on to the belief that Ali ibn Abi Talib was appointed successor before the Prophet Muhammad passes away, the Shia today are seen as being those. Because you know Shia, there are groups, Zaydis, Ismailis, Ithna Asharis. And we can go so deep into each one of them, Zaydis, Ismailis, and Ithna Asharis, but suffice for us to say that of those 3 groups of Shia, of which the Ithna Asharis are 85%, suffice for us to say that each one of them takes Ghadir as authentic. Then why is it that other Muslims don't? There's not a single Muslim who doesn't believe in the incident of Ghadir. But they differ over the interpretation of the word Mawla. The Holy Prophet is meant to have said, before he passes away, according to the Shia, and according to other schools. But the difference is, how do you interpret the word Mawla? According to the Shia, the Prophet says, you know in Arabic grammar, those of you who've studied Arabic grammar will know very well, the word qarina. Qarina means context. One word in Arabic can have 20 meanings, true? One word can have so many meanings. If you don't place the word in context, you're all over the place. It's like in English, you can have a number of words which can have a number of meanings. The word, for example, such as lion. If I say Alexander is the lion of the seas, of course it differs depending on context, the meaning of the word lion. The Prophet Muhammad, before he says, "Men kuntu mawla, fahada aliyun mawla," before he says this, what does he say? He says, "Alastu awla bikum min anfusikum." Alastu awla. Therefore, the context of the word mawla is the word awla. If the word awla is not there, then the word mawla can mean a hatful of things. It can mean friend, it can mean slave, it could mean master, it could mean a number of things. But he says, "Alastu awla bikum min anfusikum." Am I not the first in authority amongst all of you? The reply is yes. "Men kuntu mawla, fahada aliyun mawla." Now, someone comes forward and says, yes, Ali ibn Abi Talib, mawla doesn't mean master. Many who say it doesn't mean master don't put the word in context. They only say, I've heard "men kuntu mawla," but mawla could mean friend. Why would he announce in front of 100,000 people his friendship to Ali ibn Abi Talib? Someone will reply back to me by saying, because Ali ibn Abi Talib and Khalid ibn Walid had a major argument before Ghadir. I'll say it's not necessarily a good thing to narrate. Ali ibn Abi Talib was in Yemen. Khalid ibn Walid was in Yemen. Khalid ibn Walid had tried to bring the people of Yemen towards Islam. He couldn't do it. Ali ibn Abi Talib went, he did it. Bukhari narrates they had a major argument about the spoils of Yemen, where Khalid ibn Walid was willing to come forward and say that Ali ibn Abi Talib has taken the spoils for himself. If we say that the reason he said Mawla was because of their argument, it's not something which Muslims want to come out clearly, that already before the Prophet Muhammad dies, certain people don't like each other. So it's better that the argument stays with the word Mawla and the discussion over the word. But the majority of the Shia are of the opinion that the origin of the word Shia refers to those who believe in the imamate of Ali. Hence you notice Sunni and Shia may come forward and say that we agree on most things. The one area Shia and Sunni do not necessarily agree on is the area of imamate. True? Imamate, some say it's called caliphate, others say imamate. To the Shia, the Prophet would not leave the world without announcing a successor. To the Sunni world, the Prophet leaves it towards his companions to choose that successor. That's the difference which arises here. Number 3, theology. So now we've recognized that the Shia emerged from this period. The question arises about their theology. Of the utmost importance is to understand that theology within the Shia world originates from the 12 Imams. Theology within the Shia world originates from the 12. In which way? In the fact that the crystallization of the theology of the Shia comes from the time of the 6th Imam. Because there's an important concept that needs to be understood. The Shia, basing their idea that Ali ibn Abi Talib is the first successor, base themselves on a narration which says that the Prophet Muhammad says, there will be 12 caliphs after me. Now, this narration is seen as authentic in all schools in Islam. Who those 12 are is the question Muslims differ over. According to the Shia, the 12 are the infallibles from the line of whom? From the line of Fatima. Now, of course, the Ismailis stop at number 6 and the Zaydis stop at number 4, but the Ithna Ashari majority go up to the 12th. The theology of the Ithna Asharis emerges from where? Emerges mainly from Ja'far al-Sadiq. Because out of all the Imams of the Shia, Ja'far al-Sadiq is seen as being the one who had the chance to spread the religion more than the rest, or spread the opinions. Importantly, what are the theological opinions which the Ja'fari school differs with other schools? The first one, predestination and free will. Let's note this down. Our brothers from other schools in Islam come forward and state there are different theological schools. As in, if you go to our brothers in the Sunni world, the Mu'tazila were a theological school. The Ash'arites were a theological school. And therefore, within the Sunni world, Sunni does not mean that everybody agrees on their theology. Theology can be so different within the Sunni world itself. You find, for example, here, the Mu'tazila on predestination and free will believed in complete free will. That the human being has complete free will being given to them by God. The Ash'arites, on the other hand, of the Sunni world, believe what? They come forward and believe that God has predestined all our actions. We only taste the flavor of the action. What was known as Nadariyat al-Kasb. You only taste the flavor of the action. Otherwise, God has predestined what you do. The Mu'tazila replied by saying, well, how could you say God has predestined all our actions? As in now, if God has predestined all Pharaoh's actions, Pharaoh can come on the day of judgment and say, why have you put me in hell when you predestined my actions? As in, couldn't Pharaoh turn around on the day of judgment and say, you predestined my actions. I wasn't bad because I'm naturally bad, or I made mistakes to be bad. You made me bad. The Ash'arite school came forward and said what? They came forward and they said, well, in the Quran, God says He guides who He wants to guide, and He misguides who He wants to misguide. And therefore, there was a difference within Sunni theology on this one issue, predestination or free will. The Shia came forward, the Ithna Ashariya, under the leadership of Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq. They came forward and they said, we are in a position between the two positions. They asked him, what do you mean? I'm going to give quite a practical example. When he was asked, what do you mean? Are our actions predestined or do we have free will? And he replied by saying, it's somewhere in the middle of the two. When they said to him, what do you mean somewhere in the middle? He said to the person asking him, lift your right leg. So he lifted his right leg. And then he said to him, now lift your left leg at the same time. He said to him, I can't. He said to him, that's the ratio. There are some things we control, there are others controlled by God. And therefore the ratio was seen in this classic example, that within the Shiite school, there are certain actions in predestination free will, which God has already predestined, which man does not have a choice in. Whereas there are others which are in the hands of man. So how about the conundrum that I guide who I want to guide, and I misguide who I want to misguide? It's a conundrum, because if God doesn't like me, I'm not getting guided, am I? Because the Quran says He guides who He wants to guide, and He misguides who He wants to misguide. Ja'far al-Sadiq replied by saying no. You see, these were the key theological questions in his time. between himself and other theologians.